That seems better, Thad.
It seems a little bit better.
Yeah.
It's actually more expensive than the Jack.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
All right, we are almost ready here.
And it is 8:30.
And we're going. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. We are joined today by Thads Stafford. Actually, Thad and I go back 30 years because we went to high school together. Although, Thad, I bet we never said a single word to each other in high school.
I'm not, probably not. I don't know.
You're a little bit younger than I am. And we didn't grow up together.
No, and it seems like this day and age, like it doesn't really matter as much as far as classes, but back then it was, if you weren't in the same grade, there wasn't a lot of interaction, like going back, you know what I mean, with each other, unless you were on like a sports team together or, something like that, or debates or theater or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we just didn't run in the same circles, but. Yeah.
Yes, but I certainly know your wife well because her sister is a really, really good friend of mine. So I have known of you. I mean, I remember when Bonnie started dating you, we were all agog. So it was a big deal.
I'm sure.
Well, we're really, really happy to have you joining us today, Thad, because your sobriety journey, we referenced this a little bit earlier this week, but your journey has in some ways been compounded by the fact that it was made so public without you choosing for it to be made so public. So can we just start with the question we kind of start with for everybody, which is, how did you go from there to where you are today? And you can start your there wherever you want, Thad.
Well, I don't know how much time we have. It's taken a while. But you're right. And probably how it's helped me actually get the help I needed was, I mean, I didn't like it at the time, believe me, the whole publicity of everything that happened. For any viewers, I was a police sergeant with Moorhead PD, worked there for over 20 years. As a supervisor the last 6. So, I mean, my face was on the news and, and growing up in Moorhead, people just knew who I was. And then, so, when a cop or a teacher, or a priest or someone in that higher authority gets arrested, it becomes news. Unfortunately, not everybody knows the whole story behind the whole incident. They just think, oh, he was out partying and got arrested and he's, stupid for doing that decision, where it actually runs a heck of a lot deeper than that. So, but going back, I mean, that's, again, probably what helped me get the help that I needed, because it wasn't, there's a lot of shame, I think, that came with me in trying to reach out for help. Like, I felt like I was weak, especially in the career position I was in. Felt like I should be able to handle this. This is what I signed up for. I help everybody else with their problems. How can I help? How can I handle my own problems? And so there was some shame in there. And then, so when all of a sudden you get thrust into public view, it actually became easier for me to talk about, the issues I had, just because everybody already knew anyway, So that helped kind of, jumpstart everything where I've gotten to today. So I go from August of 2018, when I got arrested by my own agency, or the sister agency, the sheriff's department had to get called in just because of conflict of interest, which it didn't matter because the deputy arrested me. I'd worked with him for 15 years or whatever it was. To today, where physically, mentally, emotionally, just in a way better place. Have a new career, that has nothing to do with law enforcement, which has been a whole new challenge in itself. And then throw in the pandemic on top of that. It's been a heck of a 2.5 year ride, that's for sure, to get to where I am now.
Well, congratulations on where you are today, Thad, because, not everybody could have borne up under the kind of scrutiny that you received. Again, not of your own choosing. When Maz and I decided to go public with this, it was after contemplation and conversation, and we got to control the narrative. And we're on a small platform. We're not in the largest regional newspaper's front cover. So I think any recovery story is impressive, but a recovery story with that added layer of scrutiny, I think is really, really incredible. And then what you've done with it since, because enough time has passed that you could have just said, all right, it's kind of water under the bridge, I've moved on. But we have watched a number of times when you have chosen to again republicly acknowledge it in an effort to be helpful. So can you talk about why you think you have an opportunity or an obligation maybe to be as public as you've continued to be?
Well, what in my position, I've always kind of been in a leadership role, even whether it was a patrol officer or I was a detective for, a number of years giving presentations. So first off, I'm comfortable talking in front of people because I've done it 1,000 times. And so that's part of it. Some people that's not their thing. They can't get up in front of people and let alone tell something as personal as, the battles that I've had to endure and that a lot of us have to endure. It's hard to express that. First of all, if it wasn't for the support of my family, none of this would even be possible. Back in the day, it's no secret now that, our family was, we were having a rough time, and Bonnie was contemplating, is this probably going to be over? My kids were upset. There was a lot of turmoil going on and behind our closed doors, which, you put this perfect mask on, like, hey, everything's fine. Look at my Facebook page. Look at, how I am out in the public. Everybody thinks we got the perfect family, the white picket fence, and everything's perfect. And after this all happened, the amount of people who reached out to me, especially fellow law enforcement officers, you realize, that's a lot of that is facade. Everybody's dealing with something out there. So sorry, this is kind of a long way to get to the question.
We're happy to hear it.
So anyway, kind of in that leadership role, I just felt like, I've got the platform to do this. And, why not try and make something good out of something that was really, really bad? And, and part of it too is I know that in my profession that it is still considered taboo to admit weakness and to reach out for help. And there's ridicule and there's shame, like I said, and feeling like you can't handle what you signed up to handle. And now realizing as I've had a chance to step away from the job and look back, none of that is normal. Like, we shouldn't be able to handle that. That's not a normal thing to view every single day, the stuff that we have to deal with. And of course we need help, but it's still that kind of that macho, archaic way of thinking that it's just not, it's not, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to handle it. So kind of twofold. One, leadership role, I felt like I had the platform, I could do it. And two, I really wanted to step up for some of the law enforcement people, even if it's, not a whole bunch of them, but even to change minds of administrators and how to go about handling this, and mental health for their officers and how they can do a better job at doing that. And, and I've talked with the chief of police at Moorhead PD, and he has implemented changes since this happened. So it's just, I guess basically trying to turn something good out of something that was really bad.
Yeah. I remember Bonnie and I have a mutual friend, and shortly after your arrest, she and I were having lunch, and she said to me something that I'll never forget. She said, "Thad's just the one that got caught." She said, he's not the police officer who's got a drinking problem. He just made a bad decision that night and got caught. So I'm not asking you to make predictions or projections or anything like that, but do you think that there is a higher percentage of people in these high stress jobs, these jobs where you're seeing crazy trauma that the rest of us just do not encounter? This feels like a stupid question because I think the answer is yes, but do you think that lends itself to having a higher challenge with addiction issues?
I mean, 100%, absolutely. I mean, it's been known for a long time in the law enforcement profession, and there are other professions out there as well, but I'm just going to concentrate on mine. So it's not to take away from anybody else, that
Yeah.
not saying nobody else has a hard career, nobody else has trauma. You know, you look at nurses, and I can even lump together, you know, first responders and
Yeah.
things like that. So not just even police, but fire and, you know, paramedics and things. Yeah, because I mean, you know, I always kind of talk about you know, it's like one grain of sand every day almost, you know, and at first it's no big deal. It's like, oh, you know, it's a dead body I had to deal with, or it's somebody who got severely beaten, or, you know, it could have been a fatality accident. And all of a sudden children with CPR. I mean, but it's just one thing, you know, and for a while it's okay. You can kind of deal with it or whatever. And then you learn at a young age, at least I did, that having a drink just kind of helped settle things and kind of calmed your nerves and made you relaxed, and you know, and it worked for a while. Because I mean, when I was in patrol, you know, for like the first 7-8 years of my career, I barely had any booze in the house. Like, I didn't. It wasn't really until I started doing child abuse investigations that I noticed, and I didn't even notice it, but Bonnie was the one to point this out. That's when she noticed the uptick in the drinking, and also in my behavioral changes, when that happened. So, like I said, I think it was one thing, little thing after another, day by day, deal with it every single day, and it mounts up, and all of a sudden you get to a point, it's like, okay, I'm feeling anxiety, and I'm feeling sad, and why am I getting choked up at this when I shouldn't be? I mean, all these little indicators, and it's like, now I don't know what to do with this, and I've never been shown a path or given the okay that it's okay to reach out for help, because it just wasn't taught especially when I started back in the 90s, you know. So where was I going with but so yes, it is. So you put all that together. Yeah, it is. It's known that those professions just have a higher propensity, just because it's almost seemed like it's the okay way to deal with it, right? Like this is the allowed way to deal with it. Go kick back with your buddies, you know, even if it's after a midnight shift at, you know, 8:30 in the morning, let's go and kick a few back, and, you know, because that's the end of our workday, right? So,
Right.
I mean, that's kind of seems okay. But yeah, I think it's a perpetuation of this is how they've done it, and it seems to, at least in this profession, carry forward a lot more than maybe in some others, you know, of the proper, or not the proper, but the allowed way to handle it, if that
Well, it's
makes sense.
interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to hear you talk about this sort of grain of sand of stress and pieces of your job, because from my perspective, watching Maz fall into alcoholism, it was the exact same mindset. It was just a grain of sand. One, you know, so one whiskey turned to two, which turned to three, which turned to all night, you know, and it just,
which turned into, you know, why are you asking me to count? I don't need to count. I haven't had many. You know, the whole thing then starts to snowball.
yeah. I mean, I don't suppose anybody goes from 0 to 100 to trauma, to inability to manage emotional stress, to addiction, to any of it. It's a slow, gradual build. And as one is going up, the other's going down. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
So let me ask you something here, because, you know, our jobs are completely different, and, you know, we ended up suffering from the same outcome. Now that you're wonderfully clear-headed and sober and enjoying life as you clearly are, which is delightful to see, so I'm glad I'm not the only one. Do you think it's easier now with I'll say but, you know, your new frame of mind to deal with any lingering thoughts about your former career? Is it easier to deal with like what started you drinking?
Yeah, to be able to kind of look back and see it, like I kind of noted before, that's, you know, the child abuse stuff, that was hard on me, and I didn't want to admit that it was, but it was hard. And to see those kids suffer the way they did, whether it was physically or sexually, however they were abused, right, that was tough to deal with, and how it just kept ramping up. And Maz, as you know, I mean, you know, we don't get any better, right? It just kind of it just keeps going, and which it did. But as I was in it, like, I honestly did not think I had a problem. Like, I did not. even all these red flags that were happening, right? I mean, there were a lot of bad things that were happening at home and you know, and other situations where I was blacking out, you know, and all the stuff, waking up in a panic, like, oh my God, how did I get home last night? I mean, all these little things, right? But none of that mattered. I mean, it just, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, well, it's time for a drink now. I mean, it didn't matter that all of that stuff was happening. So when you're in it, you don't really, at least for me, I didn't see it. I didn't see myself as having a problem. It wasn't until, you know, obviously it was going to take me hitting like a brick wall at 100 miles an hour in order to maybe get in my head. And even when I got arrested, and I mean, you know, talk about a humbling experience and embarrassing, and for my kids having to go through that and seeing me in the news and all that, it was tough. But it was the only thing that forced me to get into treatment, which allowed me the 30 days. Actually, it ended up being like 72 days, I think it was, that I ended up staying in treatment. But that allowed me the time to concentrate on me, like to really reflect and take a hard look at what really is going on. Because even when I got to treatment, like, I didn't go there to thinking that I was an alcoholic. I honestly did not. I went there. And we maybe have different reasons, and I'm pretty sure I know what yours is, but I went there to save my career. I mean, I really did. That's the reason I went. I'm like, I have to go and you know, show that I've got a problem, and this is a medical, you know, type of thing, and that kind of thing. That's the reason I went. It wasn't until I was there for probably about 3 or 4 days where I finally opened my mind, and after talking to people, realizing I am just like all of you who are here. You know, some are worse, some are not as bad. I mean, but whatever, we all suffer from the same thing. So that was the only way that it kind of opened my eyes and finally started giving me some clarity about what really was going on.
I say this almost every week, but I am so struck over and over and over again at how unique everybody's journey is and how similar everybody's like light bulb moment is. And then, you know, it kind of goes back to being unique, because I know that some people really struggle to stay sober and some people don't struggle. And so I'm not trying to homogenize it, but it is just so incredible to me that we have all these people on who are bright, who are problem solvers, who are in positions to be, you know, looking at a scenario and saying, okay, here's what's wrong. Here's how we're going to fix it. And yet you are all, to a person, unable to do that for yourselves.
Yeah.
And
well, it is in my career, like, I mean, you know, we control everything, right? I mean, we control the situation and what happens and the outcome and all that. Very controlling, very, you know, that kind of personality. This was one thing that it drove me crazy. And I've always been a pretty disciplined person, you know, whether it was with staying in shape or, you know, whatever it may be. And I could not control this, and it drove me crazy. Like, why can't I do this, you know? And I tried, and Maz, you probably with me, I tried, I don't know how many different things to try and control it, right? Whether it was measuring the shots that I had to drink, going to the beer diet, right? I don't even like beer, and trying to switch to that. You know, only buying the traveler size, you know, well, that just forced me to go to the liquor store more often. I mean, but you try all these different ways, and it's like, why can't I take a hold of this thing? Why can't I figure this out? And it isn't until I got to treatment where I started learning about, you know, the actual disease, and realizing why that is.
Yeah, mostly what this does for me on an almost weekly basis is it reconfirms for me the understanding, because it is, I don't know why I need to have it reconfirmed, but I seem to need it, the disease aspect of it, that it's not an intellectual thing. It's not a choice. The choice is in the starting, but once it grabs you, you know, then it's no different than cancer. You can't will your cells to stop problematically splitting. If you have cancer, the cancer will do its job.
Right.
No matter how much you try.
And the medicine for us is just different. Like, we, you know, all of our paths are different, and all of our journeys, you know, to try and stay sober for the rest of our lives is different. Some of us need to go to a meeting every day. Some may need it once a week. Some may just need to, connect spiritually. I mean, there's all different ways, but somehow you've got to figure out what that is for you, because that is like taking your medicine. If a diabetic, they have to take medicine the rest of their life. And that's the thing, is we have to realize we have to take our medicine the rest of our lives. And if we don't, and I know this for a fact, like if I stop going to my AA meetings that I go to, or the meetings I go to, and stop connecting on a spiritual level, which I do every day, and stop getting support, from family and friends that I have, there is no doubt in my mind, and I honestly and sincerely know this, that I would be back to where I was in a matter of days. And I just know that if I pick up that first drink, it's over for me. I mean, it just is, so it's trying to take the medicine that I need in order to continue down this path that I feel is the reason why these things happen. And that's my view, that there was a reason why this happened, right? Whether it was, who knows, maybe the next night when I was supposed to go back to work, I would have been involved in a really bad accident or an incident, or, something, or who knows, or, my health was deteriorating quickly. Maybe it's like, this is the only way you're going to figure out how to stop this. For some reason, I wasn't going down the path that was intended for me. And this was, through my thick, stubborn head, this was the way that somebody had to show me the path that I was supposed to go down.
You know what I think sort of interesting, Thad, is I think it's possible this was the path you were supposed to be on, because what you can do on this end of it is so impactful. You just don't know what other first responders, what other people you will save. And that's not to not recognize the harm that your family lived through and all of that, because we all go through this with our addict. But boy, if on this end of it, you're doing this kind of work, then, then it might have been a valley that you absolutely had to go on for someone else, if not just for yourself. I think you were going to say something.
I was just going to, how are you dealing with AA meetings? Are you enjoying the Zoom ones? I mean, we both used to go to the Saturday morning one, and I'm actually really looking forward to that opening again, because that's an amazing meeting. But how are your Zoom meetings? Do you get fulfilling? Do you get the same out of them, or is it just different in your opinion?
At first, and maybe a lot of people feel this way, at first, kind of the novelty of it, and, I don't have to drive out in the freezing cold at 7:30 in the morning anymore, that kind of stuff, right?
Wasn't going to mention that.
Was like, this is kind of nice, but it's not anywhere close to the same as the connection that you feel. Like, there's nothing, when you walk into a meeting full of 150 men, right, who are all struggling with the same thing you're struggling. And I remember the first time I walked into those doors, just the energy that was in that room, like you could feel it, it's like, and it's weird, I spent all my life just feeling like, I don't really fit in here, and I don't fit in here. But, and at first I was uncomfortable, but it's like, it's just a place where I fit in, you know what I mean? And everybody just kind of understands what we go through. And because unless you're an addict, you can't get it. I mean, it's impossible. You cannot get it. We can explain it. Dana, you've been in these meetings. You've done these for, hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And you're still never going to really get it, right?
Absolutely.
It's just not going to, it's just not going to click. So, but just that energy and that feeling that you got when you were around people, and even the handshakes, or just being able to see someone in person, or go off into a separate room. Like when I see someone I know, that it's like, oh, okay, all right, I didn't know you were coming here, but let's go talk. Just things like that. And I do still attend them, because I know that it's still good for me, and it's still it's a place where I can feel safe in talking about whatever's going on in my life, and things that we can talk about, whether it's in, the big book or the 12x12, whatever it may be. But not nearly as fulfilling. And especially as the year has gone on, it's becoming a grind almost, but luckily I've found a group. We're very close. It's kind of a private thing, and there's only like 6 or 7 of us, and we've grown very, very tight throughout this pandemic, and that's been nice. Just to, I have a hard time reaching out and doing that, like asking for help. I don't do that very well, and when you're with the same group of guys for a year, once a week or sometimes twice a week, you really kind of form that bond or that connection. So that part has been good for me, but overall, I'm like you, I am very looking forward to getting back in person.
Yeah. I mean, I know exactly what you mean, because the Prairie St. John Friday night meeting went into Zoom, and there's about 20 of us. I stopped going for a couple of months, mostly because I got kind of worn out with this. It kind of got a bit monotonous, and it was never the same as face to face.
Right.
But one thing that I always like to think on the positive side is, of course, the net group of people there. Of course, we're all Facebook friends now. We know each other's last name. We see each other. We can follow each other more on Facebook than we could meeting once a week. It's very odd.
Right. Right. And I think, that's what I, kind of with that group that you've almost gotten to know these people on a more personal level, Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. We've got like robotics.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that's about. But
we've all run into these technology issues.
Yeah. Fine for 25 minutes and then inexplicably just bonked out. So at any rate, you know what? We seem to be really hitting an unstable point. So are you, you're kind of back?
Okay.
No, I think maybe we should wrap up, just because things are weird. And so I think we're going to end, but Thad,
thank you very much. It was great to talk to you again.
Congratulations, Thad. I'm so pleased for you. I'm so pleased for your whole family. Just really best of luck going forward. Thanks for joining us. And everybody else, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:30. Have a great day.